You've been at peace lately. It seems like there's a lot going on to maybe not be peaceful about. Peace might seem kind of illusory, but in New Thought, we hear that peace is here anyway, right? Because God is here. God is all that there is, and we know that God is peace, so peace must be there, right? So then the question becomes, well, can we feel it though? Do we sense that we are at peace? And if not, what can we do about it? Well, I'm going to make it easy for us all today, and um, and let you know there are really only two places that we need to focus on in order to have peace. One is within, in the inner landscape, and the second is in the outer landscape, what we see out there. Only two places, right? Yeah, I know. It sounds simpler than it is. But let's talk about the inner landscape first, about our inner being. I don't know about you, but sometimes I am my own worst critic. I've got this voice in my head that I know it's the mind. I know it's just the protective personality. Like the reading says, it's not the real you, not the real me, but I think sometimes if we really listen to what it's telling us, we would be shocked at how poorly it treats us, how little it thinks of us. You didn't do enough of this, you did too much of that, you didn't get to that yet. Why did you say that to this person? All of those things that go on and on and on. And when you think about it, if we're actually the presence expressing, then think that voice is saying all that stuff to God. I mean, how upside down can you get? Ernest Holmes says, there's a place in us that lies open to the infinite. But when the Spirit brings its gift, pouring itself through us, it can only give to us what we can take. What we can take. So, if I have this voice going on in my head that says I'm not worth that, I'm not allowed to have that, or this is the limit to what I get, then I can't have anything else other than that. If it thinks that peace is just inaccessible, then I won't have it. See, if it thinks that we're not holy, that we're not divine, that we're loved, that we're okay, then peace is going to elude us on the inner landscape. And maybe we think, well, okay, so I don't love myself maybe, but I love everybody else out there. So I'm doing pretty good. Well, if we think that, then we're kind of fooling ourselves, because anytime we separate ourselves, we're making a separation. That means we're in duality. We're not in this unity consciousness where we understand that everything is God, everything is love. There's it's not unconditional. The definition of unconditional love means that there are no conditions. None. That there is just simply love. And it's not just, oh, I love this person, but not that person, but not myself. No, there's just love all around. So, do we love ourselves unconditionally? Do we include ourselves in that? Do I accept that I'm divine and I'm just on a divine journey in this lifetime? And that, sometimes I, I make the target and sometimes I miss the mark that I have intended. But either way, that I'm still the divinity that I am. See, if I don't accept all of me, that means there's always got to be a part of me that has to measure up. And then there's got to be another part of me that carries the yardstick to measure with. And then there's got to be another part of me to alert the measurer that it's time to kick into gear if it sees something wrong. And then there's another part of me that has to keep vigilant so that it can judge that. And then there's another part of me that's just looking to see, did the measurer do it right? You got the idea, right? There are all these different parts of me, these different ways that I'm separate. That's not peaceful. It certainly doesn't feel like peace to me. And it's not in acceptance of the truth that I am divine, that I am the presence expressing, that I am every bit as holy as the next person. So we have, in order to have that peace within, we have to have that self love, that self acceptance, that awareness of our own divinity, our holiness. So that's on the inner landscape. But how about the outer landscape? Are we at peace with everything we see out there, with all people? Are we at peace with all the situations, all the circumstances that are out there? Mm, that's a big one, isn't it? I think if everybody understood that we're all divine, that we'd have world peace. But obviously, we're not looking that way right now. I mean, some of us even here aren't really able to hold that awareness all the time. It's a struggle for me to try to do that. A joyful one. I want to do that, but I forget, right? Well, we can take heart because Anne Frank says, "Well, how wonderful it is that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. We don't have to wait a single moment to change, not a single one." You might say, "Well, Gene, I'm not really interested in changing the world. I think I've got a pretty good idea on how I view life and how I view things out there, and I'm pretty comfortable with it. All this peace stuff, maybe I'd like a little internal peace, but hey, this world peace stuff, that's a little bit big for me. It's a little much for me to tackle." Well, I get it. I get the feeling. It does seem like a big thing, but we have to remember that the amount of peace that we hold does impact the world, or the amount of peace that we don't hold does impact the world. It either adds or detracts from the amount of peace that we see in our world. The question that Ernest Holmes asked in the seminar lectures was, is there peace enough in us so that those who come to us will not cast of shadows of confusion? It reminds me of a line in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous that says, were we not a producer of confusion rather than harmony? And of course, if you're reading that book, the answer is probably yes, you were a producer of confusion. I know I certainly have been, and in my past was uh, added a great deal of confusion. But we want to know, can I be at peace enough with what I see so that I'm a force for peace on the planet? Can we do that? And if we feel like we can't, well then how can we be at peace with what we see? Because there's a lot out there that, like I said, may not look like peace. Well, we have to be able to see rightly in order to do that. And one of the first steps in that is being able to recognize and accept what is. Now, there are many spiritual teachers that tell us that very same thing. I'm going to quote several of them. Wayne Muller reminds us that before we can accept things as they are, we must see things as they are. And Reverend Ron Fox says, we often see things as we wish they were rather than what they really are. But if we want peace and serenity, we need to accept what is. And then I love how Byron Katie puts it. When you argue with reality, you lose, but only 100% of the time. And then Jack Cornfield says, life offers us what it offers us. Our task is to meet it with understanding and compassion. So, can I see what is, see it for what it is, and still love it, still be at peace with it? For me to be able to do this, I have to take a step back from being so in everything. I have to take a step back and realize that everything is God, that holiness is everywhere. And source or God doesn't have judgments about what's going on. God, God is the one that's expressing in all these ways. It's not going to express and then judge itself, right? Well, I am also that presence. I am also source. Each one of us is. So if that's the real us doesn't judge either. It's the mind, it's the protected personality that does the judging. It's the one that makes up the stories. It's the one that thinks it's right about everything. In practitioner training, there was a class where this question really occurred to me. We were looking at different difficult situations, and I asked the question, well, what does God think about all of these situations? And I was wanting to get the big answer, right? Well, my teacher turned it around and said, I don't know. What do you think God thinks about all of these things? Well, at the time, my consciousness and understanding of the presence, it hadn't evolved. It wasn't quite as formed as it is now. And I wasn't really sure I have an answer. But today, if I ask that question, first of all, I would think, well, okay, God doesn't think. God just is. God is this essence, this presence that just is. It just exists. And second of all, God doesn't have a judgment. There's no judgment about it. God doesn't he doesn't love all the people that believe A over here and not love all the people over here that believe B. No, how could that possibly happen? Because for one thing, God doesn't love some and not another. God is the presence of love. So everything, and everyone falls under this umbrella of this presence of love. And second of all, God is the people that believe A, and God is the people that believe B. God is all of it. God is all of it. It's just presence expressing, presence discovering a new way for consciousness to evolve, a new way for humankind to push the frontier of consciousness. That's all that's going on. Now we may not have stepped back far enough so that we can see that everything does serve, that there's a purpose in everything. Um, but we do know that God is everything. And God is this presence of goodness. So everything must be leading towards goodness. Everything must have goodness within it. Everything serves the A believers and the B believers, all of it. When I can step back that far, I can see that holiness is everywhere, in everyone. I think I think one of the reasons that we don't have peace when we look at a situation is first of all that judgment, but second of all, we have some angst about, oh, is good gonna win? Like in the movies, the good guy gonna win? Is good gonna win? It's kind of like asking, really though, will God win? And I would say, win over what? Win over what? There's nothing else for God to win over. There are not two powers out there. There's just one power. There's one essence, one presence, and it's all God. There's never a loser. And if I can come to that awareness with everything I see, then I can be at peace with what's on the outer. Ernest Holmes again says, open the gates of your consciousness to the divine presence, and you will be flooded with light. If we open our consciousness to that awareness of the divine presence as everything, we'll be flooded with light, that light of understanding, that light of awareness, the energy of peace, seeing everything is holy, knowing that all is well inside and outside. And when I know that, I can be a force for peace on the planet. So I brought some tools with me today for us to help be more peaceful. It's not quite an acronym, it's just the repeated letter S. There are three S's in a row. And the first S stands for start your day feeling peace. Start your day feeling peace. So this means even before you put your little tippy toes on the floor, right before you get out of bed in the morning, if you can sense that feeling of peace within your body, it's easier to do when we're just coming out of sleep because we're still in that in between place. But it might also help to have an affirmation. Now, there used to be an affirmation I would do that really put me in a place of peace. I'd say, "Oh, God's in charge." But once again, I'd ask, in charge of who? In charge of what? There's only God. What can it be in charge of? So today, my affirmation would be something more like, God is everything, and that everything is for me, and that all is well. Maybe an affirmation like that can help you feel peace, to know peace within. And if we start our day with peace, that feeling of peace, and have the intention that throughout the day, I'm going to return to the feeling. I'm going to return to the feeling. I'm going to bring that feeling in. Then that will get us a long way towards feeling more peace. So that's the first S. The second S is surrender the mind to the higher self. Surrender it. Instead of letting the mind make up stories and make judgments, surrender it to the higher self. Reverend Dr. Ron Fox says surrender may feel like giving up or suffering a defeat. In reality, surrender means going with the flow of life. It is living in and accepting the present moment. It's letting go of resistance to what is. There's the what is again. See, there is a flow of goodness, of love, of life pouring in and through each one of us at all times, at all moments. And the only pain that we experience is when we have resistance to that flow. The presence of God is not static. It's not something you can put in a box or put in a church or something that you can just hold in your heart and never have it change. It's not something you can hoard up. Uh, it's the presence of God is always flowing in and through all of its creation. It's flowing, wanting itself to be known in new and wondrous ways in all of creation. So the second S, surrender to that flow, surrender the mind to that flow. Now, the third S is see God in everything, see holiness in everything. Ernest Holmes again said, an evolved soul is always a worshiper of God, worshiping God in everything. In everything. So let's just do a little practice with this. If you want to close your eyes, you can do that. And just imagine that you are in the very presence of a divine being. It could be someone named Jesus or Buddha. It could be Kuan Yin, Brahma. But you're in the very presence. And sense what a feeling of Oh, there might be reverence, deep love. So feel what that feels like. And keep the feeling, keep focusing on that feeling while you slowly open your eyes if they're not already open. And keep that feeling, keep it. Now you do realize that what you're looking at is just as holy as that divine being, the computer, the door, the your glass of water, the people that you see on the screen. There's holiness everywhere. It's all divine. There's this awe and this reverence. Oh my gosh, I'm in the presence of this holiness. See God in everything. So let's take a deep breath deep in the belly. And let us just go into our treatment, our spiritual mind treatment. As we breathe deeply in the body, we remember, we recall, oh, yes, that breath, it's also holy. And oh, yes, the lungs that are breathing it, oh, also holy. And yes, this body is divine, just as anything else would be. That we often feel like we're praying to the presence, but really the presence is all that there is. It is the allness of life, the allness of love, of goodness. And so we simply come into an awareness of that allness and feel ourselves as that, because each one of us is part of it, made of it, growing as it grows, as it expands. So in this awareness, I speak my word for each and every one of us. That this day, we become more aware of something so holy that it almost takes our breath away. Whether it's our own divinity, or it's the divinity of an animal companion, the divinity of the food that we eat, the divinity of each other that we're seeing. Oh my gosh. What beauty there is in this awareness, in this feeling. For surely and certainly, God is all that there is. So we take a deep breath in that. Anchor it in our bodies. And with delight, we know that a word so spoken must of itself become into the manifestation in our lives. We're grateful for that. And so we let it be. And so it is. Amen.